Hey Rennie, thanks for the intro. Welcome to our 15 Tech Trends Emerging in 2018 webinar. This webinar will cover the tech trends that we believe will emerge in 2018 and also be really interesting in the years to come. We're covering everything from retail to fitness to cars. There are new ways to own cars covered. We're talking about a global chip race to power artificial intelligence and how 3D printing is shrinking supply chains, and much, much more. Our very first trend is about physical retail. So physical retail has already undergone a lot of threats from places like e-commerce and small businesses shutting shop. But in the new iteration of physical retail, they will be invading new spaces. Think decentralization, moving away from big stores into your Uber, into unmanned pop-up stores and vending machines. Big companies are already looking at this, like Walmart. Walmart in November 2017 filed a patent for an end-to-end system that would supply and operate this unattended storefront. The concept is that this will be right inside your home, thinking that this is mostly some sort of co-living space or an apartment building. As you can see on the side, there is an unmanned motorized transport unit that's probably a drone, and it will deliver goods to a specific inventory loading portal. Purchases will be tracked by sensors, and these sensors can detect if an object is removed from the store and track you as well, so they'll charge you immediately as you walk out with it. Another iteration of retail moving out of stores is unmanned kiosks. Late in 2017, a startup, Bodega, raised a bunch of funding to attempt to build and distribute its unmanned kiosks. These are essentially automated vending machines that would be filled with goods and exist inside buildings or co-working spaces, a little bigger than a vending machine, more of a kiosk. Bodega met with a lot of controversy because of its name. In New York particularly, bodegas are small mom and pop shops, and the attempt to sort of shut them down with tech was met with a lot of apprehension. But its idea of kiosks and vending machines that are automated already exist around the globe. In Japan, there is an automated machine that's stocked with goods and accepts QR codes connected to wallets if you want to pay. Pictured here in the slide is Bingo Box, which is a Chinese company. It lets you walk in and pay for anything, once again, with the QR code that's connected to WeChat or Alipay. And JD.com, which is Alibaba's e-commerce rival in the country, is also planning to release automated stores and automated medicine dispensers across China. Our next trend is on the future of fitness. Fitness in the past couple of years has really had a big boom. There's been an increase in gyms and studios. Companies like ClassPass are trying out these new models that let you access studios without having to be tethered to a single gym. And now in 2018, thanks to a couple of trends, fitness is growing more techy and moving away from the gym entirely. One well-known company that straddles all three of these trends is Peloton. Peloton is considered a unicorn. It's valued above $1 billion, and it combines live streaming, connected hardware, and the travel industry. Just released a new thing where it lets you live stream workouts on demand if you sign up for their services. Its hardware is an internet-connected bike with a tablet on it. Its latest offering is the Peloton Tread, which offers guided hiking and walking workouts, as well as cross-training classes. And recently, Westin Hotels partnered with Peloton, which lets hotel guests access the company's newest bikes. Live streaming is a really hot segment in fitness right now, thinking that you don't need to be at the gym to see these classes. One example is Maryland's Burnalong, which lets users live stream your workout to your friends or even to chosen fitness instructors so they can comment on it. Then there's Aptiv. Aptiv takes a slightly different approach. It says that you can't really watch videos while you're working out, and instead it hosts audio clips of classes on its app that you can listen to. ClassPass, which we mentioned before and is very well funded and popular, now lets you sign up for classes and live stream versions of them at $15 a month right into your home. So you can check out your favorite instructors without having to even be there. Third trend, travel industry. So the travel industry is really beginning to explore fitness as a bigger option. You know, if you're traveling, you really shouldn't have to let yourself go, is the whole concept there. Equinox, which is a gym that's really popular around the country, has released its own line of hotels that will be debuting in 2019, equipped with lots of bikes. Westin Hotels that we mentioned before have Peloton bikes, and recently they also partnered with New Balance. And if you walk into a Westin hotel now for $5, you can get clean workout clothes and sneakers at any time, and even run on these running routes that they've created around the hotels. Our next trend is on tech in real estate and property. So obviously technology companies are hiring at high levels. This hiring is beginning to push out locals. Housing prices are driven up really, really high, and even tech's own entry-level employees can't afford rent. And this isn't just in San Francisco, this is happening all over the world, and tech workers are transient, and there are a lot of imbalances involved in this. There are way more workers than homes available, and to answer these questions, big tech is beginning to build out its own housing and corporate campuses. In July 2017, Google spent about $30 million on 300 prefab homes for its employees. It plans to put these in Mountain View, and it's partnered with housing developers out there like SciWest and Sobrato. Facebook has also revealed plans for a giant spread in its corporate campus in Menlo Park. It calls it a mixed-use village, which would mean that it wouldn't only have housing, but it would also have transportation and a grocery store and pharmacies. Most of this housing would be for Facebook employees, but the community could access some. And it claims that some of these offerings would be priced below market rate, making it more affordable. Apple has also moved into real estate, but in a bit more of a property development move. The company, known for its focus on design, has, purely with aesthetics in mind, built out a giant Apple park. Like other Apple products, it's super beautiful, as you can see from this photo. Design is central to its architecture. It's resplendent with cafes, a wellness center, a transportation hub, and an auditorium. There's a Steve Jobs theater inside of it, and the entire thing was planned out by Johnny Ive. Our next trend is on a new way to own a car. Cars are becoming a subscription good. You can pay a monthly fee and drive your car. In your package, there will be insurance and maintenance. And the real differentiator between this and leasing is that there won't be a maze-like contract, and you can sort of break rentals at any time, use new cars, etc. If we look at our auto commerce market map, there are a few startups operating in this space. AutoFi, for example, offers different financing models. Fair is a particularly interesting one that fits into this segment. It's raised over $1 billion in funding. Its investors include BMW's venture arm, and it's partnered with 100 dealers. And if you log on to the Fair site, you can just pick a car that you like, ask to rent it, and then when you're bored with it, like let's say it's summer and you want a different kind of car, you can swap it out and return it when need be. Fair has a pretty stacked list of executives, including TrueCar's ex-CEO Scott Painter. But original equipment manufacturers, as in Big Auto, is not exactly taking this lying down. They're tapping into their own inventory to start renting. Volvo SUV rents its new 2019 XC40. Ford leases pre-owned vehicles with Canvas. Cadillac has a system called Book, where it rents out luxury vehicles, and Porsche Passport piloted in Atlanta in October 2017. It's important to remember that these are relatively small-scale experiments at the moment because access can be a problem. Porsche is only available in Atlanta. Fair services are only available to California drivers, and Volvo service is only available for the XC40. Our next trend is on all of our favorite furry pet friends, the dog. The dog of the future has a lot of great technology to look forward to. They're obviously a giant consumer category. CPG brands own stuff. Pet tech moves a lot of dollars. People spend a lot of money on their pets, and companies are really starting to take notice of this. Doggy wearables are a particularly interesting trend that have emerged. FitBark, pictured on the left side, costs about $70 and it collects data on everything from the way your dog sleeps to daily routines. And veterinarians are claiming that they're starting to use this to aid their decisions. PitPat on the right also calculates things like calories burned. You know, you can figure out your dog's feeding schedule once you figure out how many calories it burns a day. Another company is Embark, which is essentially a doggy 23andMe. It's raised a little over $7 million, and if you swab your dog's cheek, you can send it in. It costs about $199, so it is expensive, but you'll figure out things like your dog's pedigree, its ancestry, and whether or not it's susceptible to genetics-related diseases. Lastly, and this one is a bit far-reaching, but it is cute, is the Samsung Dream Doghouse. That dog sitting there is sitting on a treadmill lined with fake grass. There is a little tablet inside where the dog can call its owner if need be. There's an automated dog feeder and even a hydrotherapy pool all the way back there to the right. Our next trend moves into augmented reality and holograms. Holograms have always been a part of pop culture, but they're not exactly a popular thing at the moment. But thanks to a few key advances, they are becoming a real possibility. Apple is exploring its cell phone as a hologram viewer. On the left, you can see a patent the company filed for projected holograms in 2012. The patent's a little confusing, but it basically just shows someone projecting from a hologram into air. And some people think that this might be something new that the company will roll out with its latest UI, which would be pretty interesting. On the right side is 8i. After Apple rolled out ARKit with the iOS 11, which is a framework that lets developers create AR apps for the iPhone and iPad, 8i, which is a California-based company, came out with Holo with ARKit, and it lets you, take a video of yourself and turn it into a hologram. Mixed reality device makers are entering the space. The most well-known and heavily funded one is Magic Leap, which is valued at nearly $5 billion. It's yet to release a product, but in 2015 it released this crazy video that's on the right side of a holographic whale leaping out of a school gym floor. Turned out that it was fake, and it wasn't that Magic Leap's technology made this stuff, but actually the company explained that this was what things would look like in the future. There's also Google Glass and HoloLens, which both interact with holograms in certain aspects of them, as well as Lightform and Looking Glass, which are two well-funded device makers. And when these new device makers and devices emerge, there is a whole new world of applications. Pictured on the left is Scotland's Holoxica, which takes an image from a medical scanner of a patient's body and creates a 3D full-color hologram. And doctors can take a look at it and see what's really happening in someone's body. And on the right side is a really popular application. At Coachella, Tupac Shakur was brought back on stage in hologram form. Our next trend is on the rise of massive simultaneous online social communities, short for MSOC, as we've termed them. This trend is really about this new emerging way to interact with people online. There are already giant social networks like Facebook and Twitter and all of that, but you're not exactly logging on at the same time as people to see what they're doing. Time's not really an aspect there. But recently, companies like HQ Trivia have shown that there is demand for these types of experiences. Of course, companies have tried their hand at MSOCs before. Meerkat is like Periscope in that it lets you stream yourself to large audiences at once that are anonymous. Pictured below and released by the same company, House Party. House Party is a group video chat, sort of like Skype, but a lot more seamless and quick. Facebook took that idea and released Bonfire, thinking that whenever you wanted, you could just click on your friends' names and get on a video call with them simultaneously. However, no one has really seen the success that HQ Trivia has. It airs twice a day, in the morning and the evening time. It challenges viewers to log in at the same time and answer trivia questions in this rapid-fire fashion. And it's planning to raise a new round that values it upwards of $100 million. One of its big differentiators is that it pays money, so all the winners end up splitting up this pool of cash that goes straight into their PayPal accounts. But because it is a fairly easy thing to replicate, it does have many competitors. One is the Q, which launched in December 2017. And across the world in India, an app called Showtime replicates the same concept. Our next trend is on President Donald Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act plan and what it will do to large tech companies. This new tax plan lets U.S. corporations repatriate the money they make overseas at a tax rate of 14%. Many major tech companies keep their cash overseas. Apple and Microsoft are the top two, and Alphabet also makes it to the top 5. Apple has over $250 billion in cash overseas. During a recent earnings call, Apple explained that it wants to use this money as it brings it back to bring its cash in line with its debt. However, Microsoft and Alphabet have made no comment on what they plan to do with their money. But the cash windfall can lead to a lot of things. It will definitely be another shot in the arm for the tech sector. It could be M&As or share buybacks or even investing in startups. Our next trend is on how cross-border M&A and partnerships are increasingly drawing scrutiny thanks to geopolitical tensions. Over the past few years, the US has blocked several major tech deals, particularly from China. An important one was in October 2017 when President Donald Trump stopped a Chinese investor from acquiring a semiconductor company. This semiconductor company was Lattice Semiconductor, and the reasons listed by the White House, as you can see in this press statement, was that the investing Chinese company would have Chinese government connections, Lattice's semiconductors were used by the US military, and there would be a deep transfer of IP and technology. This geopolitical tension is also moving to partnerships. Access to genomic data is growing to be a national security concern. Precision medicine, which is a new industry, promises to deliver an exact cure for an individual's disease, but it requires this huge, diverse genotype and phenotype set. China's iCarbon X uses this massive data set in its technology, and it's invested in a US-based personalized health network, Patients Like Me, for $100 million. But to get all of this data, it needs to partner with more companies in the US. However, the US government has voiced concerns that there should be stronger control over genomics data in case it leads to things like bioterrorism or even just plain simple access to global data. Our next trend is on the global race for AI chip dominance. There has been a giant Cambrian explosion in artificial intelligence and its applications. Now you can use it to recognize faces in videos, you can detect diseases in medical imagery, and even spot vulnerabilities in software. However, there is a new battle for the chips that will power these applications. Firstly, China is firing on all cylinders. In 2015, Intel was banned from selling its chips to China. And since then, China has really pushed for locally developed chips and its market is buzzing. The Chinese government said that it plans to reach parity with the United States on AI by 2020 and become the world leader by 2030. It's even got a government-backed project to create a chip that has 20 times the performance and energy efficiency of NVIDIA's GPUs. As you can see by this quote, artificial intelligence is the new focus of international competition. NVIDIA's GPUs are currently the most popular chips used in the AI industry. Originally, they were created for gaming, but when AI applications came out, it turned out that they had the sort of processing it needed. Everyone from Baidu to Google relies on its GPUs. Then there's Intel, which is the otherwise dominant chip, but in artificial intelligence, it is lagging behind. It's trying to play catch up with acquisitions and partnerships. In 2015, it bought one company, Altera, for $16 billion. Altera's chips help accelerate AI tasks. It's also been releasing more AI-focused chips. At CES 2018, Intel released Loihi, which processes advanced deep learning applications with increased power efficiency. Big tech is moving in on the opportunity. Google has released 2 generations of its TPU, which will integrate with its TensorFlow open source library. In a very strategic move, Google also lets people build on other chips like Intel or Nvidia and then move to its TPU. Apple is also making its stake in AI chips. Its first machine learning optimized chip was released to allow AR and facial recognition in the newer iPhones. It's known as the A11 Bionic chip. There are startups in the space with ambitious plans. One example is Graphcore, which has raised over $110 million. It's creating a processor specifically designed to work with machine intelligence. Then there's Cambricon, which is out of China, and it's making these chips specifically for deep learning. It has plans to make 1 billion processing units in the next 3 years. There are many other startups that are attempting to make AI chips, and some are even staffed by employees who work for competing projects like Google's TPU and Baidu's Deep Learning Institute. Our next trend is on 3D printing in industrials. 3D printing has this really lofty goal, the idea being that if you print something right where it is, it will eventually lower labor costs, decrease waste, and eliminate the need for transportation. This is really useful when materials are coming from far away. This has always been a dream, but thanks to adoption from large retailers, equipment manufacturers, and logistics companies, this dream is moving closer to reality. There have been some major innovations in the technology itself. One example is Carbon 3D. It's funded for over $400 million, and it was the first to launch a super fast 3D printer. In May 2017, it introduced a new service called SpeedCell, which lets people print larger parts. Carbon 3D's printer is used by Adidas, which has partnered with the company to announce a whole shoe, the Futurecraft 4D, which is 3D printed. And the company reports that Carbon takes what was once 1.5 hours to print a single sole down to just 20 minutes. GE is another company really pushing the boundaries for 3D printing industrials. It's launched its own dedicated 3D printing group, GE Additive. In November 2017, GE unveiled the world's largest 3D printer for metals that can print parts that are as large as 1 meter in diameter. GE Additive is already printing fuel nozzles for its jet engines, and they power single-aisle jets for Airbus and Boeing. Another early adopter is UPS. UPS is important because if logistics companies pair with manufacturers, they can help print parts along the supply chain where they're needed. UPS has launched a network of on-demand 3D printers and partnered with SAP for manufacturing, the idea being that you can pop into a certified UPS store and print out the part you need. UPS has also opened up its network for outside collaboration if others want to use this technology. Our next trend is on cloud computing. Thanks to competition and widespread demand, cloud computing has gotten cheaper than ever. And now there is a new billing model. With this billing model, you can pay every time you use just a single second of cloud. This is really useful for small companies and self-employed entrepreneurs who may otherwise not want to buy large packages of cloud computing. Many major cloud services are picking up on the trend. In September 2017, Amazon rolled out its pay-per-second billing model, and Google followed suit just a week later. Both of them let users access specific tools for a cheaper price. More recently, more specialized companies are doing the same. Snowflake Computing, which is a unicorn and is valued above $1 billion, and provides data warehousing on the cloud, rolled out its own per-second billing model. Our next trend is on cybersecurity. We're all on Facebook and Twitter and releasing all of this personally identifiable information out into the wild, and the real problem being that there is no assurance that tech companies will keep it safe. Once it's out there, it's nearly impossible to track down. So for the cybersecurity world, the new mantra is simple: change begins with you. The first gate is the mobile phone. Companies like Authority look through your apps to grade them on risky behavior that may lead to things like malware and IP exposure. You can scan your own apps before installing or opening them to see if they're safe. The second trend is the browser itself. Brave is an open source web browser started by Mozilla's ex-co-founder. and it blocks website trackers and removes intrusive ads. Brave's concept is that the less data you share with advertising customers, the more privacy you eventually have online. Enterprises are also focusing on the individual. Their weakest link is now popularly known as a single employee. Facebook runs an event called Hacktober where it simulates cybersecurity attacks to see how different people will respond. This is sort of like a fire drill for cybersecurity. The company featured here is Imperium, which takes it a step further. It's raised over $60 million in funding to analyze behavior on your employee phones to protect employers against Wi-Fi, cellular, and host-based threats. Our next trend is on smart pills. Smart pills are less invasive than traditional procedures. They're easier to scale, and they don't really require skilled healthcare providers to be around all of the time. In November 2017, the US FDA approved its first smart pill ever, Proteus's Abilify MyCite. For those of you who don't know, Abilify is one of the United States' best-selling drugs. The MyCite takes the existing drug, which is used for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and enables it with sensors. Once a patient swallows the pill, it can track whether or not the drug regimen is being adhered to. Other smart pills are now being tested as well. This one here, the PillCam Colon 2, is a capsule with cameras on either end. Once it's been swallowed with water, it captures images along the digestive tract. It's keeping its eye out for polyps in your colon, which can turn cancerous if they're not removed. This is an alternative to regular colonoscopies because those, as we all know, are really uncomfortable and require inserting a tube in one end, and patients can have adverse effects. So PillCam Colon 2's hope is that it will make things a lot easier. Our last trend today is on elder care. There are many companies aiming to improve elders' quality of life through a number of new products and services. As people age, they may lose partners, see loved ones move far away, or become isolated. Increased loneliness can lead to depression and other negative mental and physical health conditions. Luckily, a number of new products and services are aiming to improve this. There is a whole host of surveillance technology that is helping keep track of and understand the behaviors of your loved ones. How often does someone eat a meal or visit the bathroom? What does a change in this behavior mean? Samsara, for example, installs a set of smart sensors in the home that catalog and analyze the daily lifestyles of elders. These help caregivers optimize for better lifestyles and health outcomes. Another company, Alarm.com, runs a wellness program. It reports on details like how often someone uses the bathroom. These sensors can be installed anywhere from under chairs to in the kitchen. In October 2017, American electronics store Best Buy rolled out a program that was similar to this. For $1 or $2 a day, customers can buy a monitoring service and track data using a dashboard or a mobile app. Once the system learns an individual's daily routines, it can notify caregivers of abnormalities. But of course, there are things that sensors can't do. What about love and companionships? Robotics are starting to experiment in companionship and aid. One example is Japan's Paro, which is pretty expensive. It's around $5,000 an animal, but it combines cuteness with artificial intelligence and sensors. It can memorize voices, respond to touch, light, audio, and temperature, and even rise with the sunlight. Sony has also released a robot dog, Aibo. Aibo was originally released in 1999, but when it was discontinued in 2017, many of its loyal users were really upset. Sony then released a new version in 2018, which is a lot better. It can develop a unique personality over time as it collects data on what you like and dislike. It can also dance, catch a bone, and eventually recognize people in your family. Robots can also be health aides. In the Netherlands, TinyBots has created Tessa, which is an internet-connected robot that can be synced with tasks and reminders. It lets your elders know about the next appointment, when to take medicine, and other deadlines to keep up. A little bit about our methodology. At the end of the year in 2018, we asked each of our industry analysts who've been spending a lot of time writing research briefs and crunching data and writing out these long, extensive reports to pick out the trends that they believe will be the ones to watch in 2018. Great, looks like we have a lot of questions from our audience. First one, is China better positioned to win the race for AI than the US? This is a particularly interesting question. As we saw in our webinar, there are pretty hefty AI efforts around the globe, and particularly in the US and China. But if China stands a chance, it really has to do with the fact that it has less regulations and less things stifling innovation out there. Whereas in the US, there are certain paths that you have to take to develop a new technology. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like in the future with the government, but personally, I would have to say that yes, China is better positioned to win this race. Great, looks like there's even more questions coming in. Another one, how unevenly distributed are some of these trends? Do we expect that they will arise first in the West, or will some countries leapfrog? That is an interesting question, and I think it is different across sectors. If we look at things like personalizing your pooch, for example, that is really interesting, but my opinion is that these will first emerge in the West, where there is a giant market for something that would be considered luxury in other parts of the world. But then there are other trends like unmanned retail moving into stores. We're seeing China really leapfrog a lot of other things like fintech, and there's no reason that they're not really going to be the ones leapfrogging retail as well. But I do think that this is going to be between the US and China and not really many of the other emerging markets. Our next question is coming in. This one is on governments. How much are governments playing a role in the innovation of technology? That is a really good question. And we can see that it's really different around the world. China is exemplary in how its government is investing in its tech companies. There is this whole recent news trend that came out that its government wanted to take about 1% of companies like Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent in the hopes that they could help it grow. China's government is also, pushing hard on facial recognition as a form of surveillance. But in the US, on the other side, I'd say we're taking more of a free market, hands-off stance, letting technology develop by itself, not really answering a lot of questions. You're not seeing a lot of questions answered on things like biotechnology even. And so I personally think that there are many different models of doing this. China is a good one to watch because its government is so hands-on and really in it, whereas the US is doing a different version of this with Silicon Valley seemingly innovating by itself until it hits some major roadblocks, at which point the government steps in. Well, that's the end of the report. Thank you guys for joining us today. And there is a deck that can be downloaded if you want to take a closer look at these trends. And if you have any other questions or feedback on the report, feel free to shoot me an email at the email listed on the deck.